Hello and welcome to the FEZ show. It is the 21st of May 2020 and there's still not too much to talk about. It's sort of day X of lockdown / quarantine, but we have managed to find some sort of juicy topics to talk about today. So joining me on today's show is the one and only Edward Hunter and the amazing Jack Pickering. Morning, boys.
Good morning. I'm not Chesney Hawks today.
No, you're not Chesney. You're not Chesney Hawk. You're the one. Well, not even the one and only. The amazing.
I'm just amazing.
The amazing super sub host.
Yeah.
That is Jack Pickering. But boys,
let's never mention that again.
Right. So what I want to actually talk about first, obviously, hair at the moment, is growing out of control. Have
you seen my hair, mate?
To be fair, I think the headset does well to sort of keep it down, but yeah, the lockdown.
Well, you either let it grow out or you do what I do, which is to get your mum to cut it for you because you can't go out to the hairdressers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to. I'm
going for full tramp. I'm going full tramp. You'll see. I'll post a picture on my Twitter at the end of lockdown to see how the difference is.
Was this actually what you wanted to talk about, Jack?
Yeah, it was actually what I wanted to talk about, because it's nice to have some general chit-chat just to see how everyone is. But what I wanted to actually say is that we are coming to the end of daily sort of chat show videos. I know that's sad face emojis.
This is the 30th one as well today.
Yeah, so we've done a lot, and I think we're all really proud of it, and the community that has reached out to us and has joined our Discord channel has been amazing. So it's been amazing to build a community over doing these shows over the course of the lockdown. And we even got some fan-made content. Big up Evan, who has given us some fan-made content to sort of maybe improve the YouTube banners and Twitter. So big up to that. So it's been really nice. But the thing is, just because lockdown and life is going back to normality, that doesn't mean that this is going to end. It's just going to we say that we're still going to do the race review of the ABB Race at Home Challenge and probably slander that a bit more, and then
is it slander if it's true?
Well, you never know. Well, hopefully it picks up, and fingers crossed, obviously, from what we released yesterday, boys, that if there is a DLC coming tomorrow, if it is ready, that we will be racing on a new track. Otherwise, we will be racing at Leicester. I need to check actually where I still am in the leaderboard, because I haven't actually done it since the first day. I don't think I can go any faster than I did. Somehow found 3 seconds. I don't know where I was going so slow in the previous qualifier, but we will be continuing, and then possibly in the future, once the Race at Home Challenge finishes, so that's Monday and Friday, we'll still be sort of there previewing it at some point. The show will be coming out. We might do one midweek show a week, just to wrap up any key news. So it will still continue, but as obviously life gets back to normal, everyone's sort of back to daily routines of jobs and just life every day is a bit of a stretch for us at this precise moment, but we will be doing something. So it's not over, but it will be in a lesser capacity. So boys,
just fizzling out.
It's just fizzling out, but it's not dead. We are not going to die because we've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it so much, Ed. I don't know how much you've enjoyed it. Obviously,
yeah, I've enjoyed being on it. I feel that if there's a second wave, we'll probably end up doing this again. Another few weeks if this continuously. So there's always hope if the worst happens.
If there is a second wave, which in the UK, obviously we don't hope there is a second wave in any country, but the thing is we still want to continue this because Formula E isn't back till August, September at the earliest. So there's still going to be plenty of things to talk about. Try and get as many people as possible. Just keep talking about Formula E. Otherwise, if we let Formula E die, it's not going to be very good. So what I want to talk about first, as we get on with the show, is manufacturers. Now, we made this point about what sort of manufacturers we'd like to see in Formula E, which is great, and we can sort of talk about that and recap that. But the question is, obviously, if you look at Formula One with Honda, for example, they used to have a Formula One team, but now they're just a pure and out powertrain supplier, a bit like Renault were before when they were sort of also dipping in and out Formula One. So I was wondering, Jack, if Formula E, if we might ever see just a powertrain supplier, just someone who's actually not created a team, because obviously with 12 teams now, and it's going to be really hard to make a new team, we could see powertrain suppliers, who want to maybe push and have a look at these customer teams and actually try and get into Formula E that way.
Well, yeah. One thing that we must remember is that in 2008 when Honda left, they left because of the credit crunch. So that team in another world, had the credit crunch not happened, could still be Honda, and Honda will be dominating all these championships right now. But alas, they're not, and they came back with McLaren in 2015, and now they're powering Honda. But yeah, I think it is possible. I know that we've touted for like some like engine manufacturers to like come into Formula E. We've said a while ago now that maybe Chevy should team up with Penske. That hasn't happened, but no, I think there is some space for some other manufacturers to come in. Not a huge amount of space, but they could still come in and they could power some teams.
That's the problem. That is the huge problem at Formula E. It's not really a problem. It's a good problem to have, Ed. Is that there isn't really much space for these manufacturers who want to jump on the Formula E bandwagon. But there's no space because, let's face it, right? We're going to have so many different powertrains anyway because we have so many different manufacturers in the series, like 9. So that only leaves 3 customer teams. So you either become a powertrain supplier for one of those customer teams, technically, but then you become a manufacturer team in a sense. You might as well be and get the 15 days testing. But then it would be unlikely. Would you then go and power a second team? But then that team has to become a customer team. You could do that because obviously, more production for you, more R&D, I suppose, resources. But because of Formula E and how many manufacturers it's got, it's unlikely that you'd get another powertrain manufacturer like a Ford, for example, who would just come in and power, say, like 3 teams or the rest of the customer teams.
Yeah, the thing about the customer team arrangement is it seems, especially in Formula E, that it seems to benefit the customer more than the supplier, in my opinion. And you only have to look at, say, the Virgin team and how they seem to have got a lot more out of the Audi powertrain than the factory Audi team, for instance. When it comes to the main question, will any big manufacturer come in just as a supplier and not a full bona fide manufacturer? That makes me think of Scuderia E and Mr. Gianfranco Bizzuto? I think I've got his name right, because I've been getting it wrong the last couple of times I brought him up. But Gianfranco's, obviously we talked a little bit about his relationship with the Fiat Chrysler Group and potentially getting Ferrari involved. It would be really interesting if Ferrari, instead of going full-blown in, they decided to dip their toe in the water as the supplier to Scuderia E, if they took over or heavily invested in one of the existing 3 non-manufacturer teams, which are Neo, Dragon, one of the other.
And Virgin.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, which is, it's interesting. But even if, say, at the moment there is no talk with Pizzuto and Ferrari, he would love it, but there is no talk. He says he has to prove on track to sort of, tempt these Italian manufacturers in. But even if Ferrari then was to invest, let's say Ferrari invest, which, Gianfranco spoke about, and it's sort of like a mini preview for the mag that comes out in a couple of days, that becomes like Ferrari's team in a sense, unless, they don't buy the whole team out in a sense, or don't buy Gianfranco out and his partners. So then it would fall into that category of a manufactured team rather than it would be anyway, because they're going to create their own powertrain. But, that it still wouldn't be Ferrari wouldn't then be, it'd just be one team rather than powering, say, 2 or 3 teams, or not being associated, or it'd be called Scuderia E Ferrari, because Ferrari just say, look, we're not going to give you all the money, Gianfranco, we're just going to give you the powertrain and you do the rest. We're just giving you the engine, we're just giving you the powertrain. Obviously with Formula E, you don't develop the chassis jack, you don't develop the battery, there's so many things that Formula E teams still don't do. Obviously, the powertrain is a big part of it, and I suppose that's why we get these manufacturers now, jumping on board, because they don't have to spend as much money building a chassis. Would, the likes of DS, jump on board, Mahindra jump on board, if they had to create their own chassis, if they had to create their own battery, would they have the finances for that? Maybe not, but because they just have to develop a powertrain, they're like, what, we can afford to do this.
I personally don't think there's any point of developing the chassis. I think the chassis should stay the same, because that's not really important in Formula E. in terms of battery, we have mentioned it before that that we do think that Formula E teams soon they will need to do their own battery alongside their own powertrain. Because that is the way that we feel is the best way to like move forward and increase the running of increase like moving everything from the racetrack to the road. But yeah, no, we don't think it's going to happen that quickly, and I think this whole situation that we're in that's delayed it even further. But hopefully by say 2025, 2026, or maybe even as late as 2030, they can start developing their powertrains because in 20 years time, that is when the petrol ban comes in for a lot of countries. So it would make sense for the teams to also develop their batteries, and also it might actually make manufacturers more interested in Formula E than vice versa.
Yeah, that's my question now. In terms of, just to wrap this segment up, is like, we got 12 teams, and the Formula E is so road relevant, which is great. And Alejandro Agag has found a product that says this is then, if we get this, we can really explode, and it has exploded. But he's kept it to 12 teams, Ed, and now there's manufacturers who probably would be jumping at the bit, or would be sort of looking at Formula E, thinking, we would like to do this, but there's no space in the inn effectively, and they're then weighing up other options that they're doing, and more electric championships are coming out, so therefore attentions for manufacturers could be swayed elsewhere, for example, than Formula E. So I suppose in truth it's going to be really hard to see manufacturers really commit to Formula E who are not already in it, because there's just basically no space for them.
Yeah, you would need someone to pull out. The only big one that's kind of pulled out, from my memory, is Renault, and they basically swapped in their sister brand, which is Nissan, because obviously they're all owned by the same group, basically, in France. So although even though Nissan is obviously a Japanese company, but anyway, I digress. I think it's a case of the original teams that sort of got in the early couple of seasons have sort of got their places kind of locked in, and it's going to be difficult to sort of push them off their perch. Especially like a team like Mahindra, for example. They may not be the most well-known manufacturer in the world, but they specialize in electric vehicles, especially compared to, say, a bigger manufacturer like Mercedes and Porsche that have joined us. Yeah, maybe they're better known, but they have not got as nearly as many EVs. So there's still definitely a place for a team like Mahindra, or even smaller teams like, say, NIO or Dragon in Formula E.
Yeah, Mahindra are a great example. It'd be great to probably speak to the actual owner of Mahindra, Anand Mahindra, actually, because I remember speaking to Dilbag Gill about, is this the opportunity for Mahindra now to really break it into Europe? And Dilbag, he said, I don't know. It's the aim. We'd love that to happen, but whether it would happen or not, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think I think one thing that's worth pointing out is one thing that we've mentioned on the show a couple of times is that we believe that there are 3 teams that want out, or want to be partnered up with Scuderia E,
yeah.
which means that one of the manufacturers might leave the sport sometime soon. So it might be a case of, okay, one manufacturer out, one manufacturer in, but yeah, it all depends on who that team is.
Oh, and we'll find out very soon. So just to clarify that, it's one team that definitely wants up for sale, and there's 2 teams that want partnered. Of those 3 teams we know, 2 of them create their own powertrain, so therefore 2 of them are manufacturers. But whether or not they want investment or not, or want out, we don't know. And the other team is the customer team. So I think there's 1 customer team. But we have to remember, Dragon also create their own powertrain. So if it was Dragon, for example, then they're not a manufacturer in a sense. It's sort of just a manufacturer race team in a sense. It's not a car manufacturer in a sense. So that could also sway what actually happens. But they are technically a manufacturer, but they're probably taking the slot that's probably not needed in a sense, but maybe Dragon might want to argue the case that, it is needed. But I don't know, Ed, what do you think on that? Because when I think about it, even now and saying that, to me it just sounds silly. Why would you? That's why Virgin stopped making their own powertrain. Once they got DS in, and they basically said, well, we're not going to make our own powertrain. We might as well become a customer team, because what's the point of making a powertrain? We don't make cars.
Yeah, I guess so. In terms of like which teams might be looking to sell, or I think every team is a bit hard up for investment right now, especially with no races going on. So you could definitely understand why some of the smaller teams would be more willing to sort of take any money from wherever it's coming from, really, at this point.
Yeah. So, and then financially, that's where we want to go on now, because obviously the Jaguar I-Pace Trophy yesterday became the first sort of, championship casualty is probably the right word, of COVID-19. Obviously DTM as well, but in terms of our world, our little bubble of electric vehicles, our electric heads, in our sort of little sphere, the Jaguar I-Pace Trophy dropped out, won't be running in next season. And, we're thinking about how has this affected Formula E financially? Like, if I go through some of the more American sports, actually, who are potentially going to do their sports without any fans this season, like the NFL, for example, they say that ticket sales, because of the lack of ticket sales and fans in seats, they're going to lose about 5.5 billion. In MLB, which is baseball, players are taking cuts, and then, there was a cut already, and then they have to take another cut because there's potentially going to be no fans, so they're probably going to be playing this season in COVID-19 pandemic issues, for example, health issues, for about 25%, they're saying, than they would have actually got paid if it was under normal circumstances. So they're not happy simply because of that, because they're not going to get paid the contract that they signed up. So, it's affecting their big numbers, especially the NFL with 5.5 billion. So, and Formula E, Jack, a series that hasn't really made money over its first 6 seasons. And, it started obviously to pick up, nearly went bankrupt, probably once or twice, especially in the first season, it nearly went under. And, us going to a couple of races, even potentially races next season, we don't know yet. They could be behind closed doors, and that could impact Formula E massively financially.
Yeah, definitely. I think this. I just think this whole situation. I think it's terrible for all motorsport classes, to be honest. One thing that I do know is that W Series is definitely not going under. So if they can do it, then I'm pretty sure Formula E can do it as well. So, and I'm not saying that because I'm not saying that all Formula E is better, but what I'm saying is that W Series is only 1 year old. And so if they can do it at 1 year old, I reckon Formula E can do it at 6 or 7 as well. I mean, like, Formula E is now like a little kid. W Series is still a baby. So it should be able to survive.
I suppose, obviously, I think Formula E will survive, but there's going to be implications for the series in terms of cost, and it depends on how much money they had in the bank, before this all started. And if the bank balance wasn't looking good before it started, what could we lose? And it's also the teams. Ones of the team's bank balances, Ed, weren't in a good place. Why are we losing DTM? Obviously that championship was in a good place financially. It was losing manufacturers, and now it's gone. And that's a huge championship in Germany and across the world. Like, it was respected, and that's gone under. I know Formula E have got decent listed manufacturers, and you'd hope it'd be in a good position to thrive. But not selling tickets is a massive part of making money for Formula E, and it's gone. And how many races can Formula E do that without actually making any money from race tickets?
Yeah, exactly. And DTM, I think you're right. It shouldn't really be. We can't really make the point strongly enough that the DTM going under is like a really huge thing. It's almost like in the UK, if the British Touring Car Championship went under, it's almost unthinkable, really. At least it would have been a few years ago. To the teams, it's really, from what I've read, they're sort of like even like €500 invoices they're having to keep an eye on. They're trying to make sure that every euro they've got, they they don't need to spend, they don't spend. So it's really a case of making sure that the teams stay solvent, I guess, during this what's going to be a pretty rocky period before things restart again. And it would be a real shame to lose, especially one of the smaller teams. And I think Formula E are doing enough to keep them afloat, but whether they're going to be competitive when things start up again or the manufacturers start spending, we'll have to see. Because some of them, like Nia, for example, were struggling a lot already.
And Formula E are nervous. They are nervous about this, and you can tell that by this 2-year powertrain cycle and, the long-term initiatives that they're setting, Jack, about, where this sport and where this series will go in the future. And that's still all up for debate in terms of whether we go back to a 1-year cycle and we create a powertrain every year, whether we keep it the 2 cycle forever, or even a 3-year powertrain cycle, which sounds mad because you're suspecting with the amount of the little emphasis Formula E teams can make, on the rest of the car. If you keep with the same powertrain for 3 years, it feels like, or even 2 years, that the championship will become quite stagnant. So, but straight away, when they released that's to save costs. And would that have happened without COVID-19? Who knows?
Well, yeah, I think I think what Formula E have done in terms of making a 2-year cycle for the powertrains, I think that's the correct decision for the moment. Whether they need to extend that or whether they need to go back to it at some point and change it around, I think that's something that they need to focus on in a couple of years' time when this 2-year staggered cycle thing comes to an end at the end of season 8, I think. But yeah, I think what they're doing is right. I mean, as much as I want to see the Gen 2 Evo car on track, if it comes to a point where we can't because of financial reasons, if they make the Gen 3 car even better looking than the Gen 2 Evo car, then I'm more than down for that. But yeah, I think this whole situation, no one really expected it. I mean, I don't think anyone really realised how far that this would actually go when we heard about it in December. But yeah, no, I think Formula E right now they're doing the right things. And yeah, I think that's something to review in a few years' time.
Yeah, but it just shows of how they thought, financially, okay, we need to tighten the belt, Ed. And there's other ways that, people are suggesting right now that, Formula E could save costs and other things that they could potentially do in the future, to keep it running so we don't die, so the series doesn't sort of just come to a stop.
Absolutely, Jack. There's a lot of talk about standardized parts and like everyone using powertrains that are the same hardware but different software in order. Well, multiple teams, like you say, 2 or 3 teams that use some of the same suppliers anyway for a lot of their bits in their powertrain. And it's interesting. I think there's understandably a lot of resistance because it would mean that in terms of you can't change the hardware each season, it sets back the progress a little bit. But on the other hand, it's a great way to save costs because one of the most expensive things in a Formula E team is basically building and developing a powertrain for each season.
And I suppose, Jack, yes, if we went standardized parts, okay, yeah, that saves costs. It saves costs because and it makes the championship a bit more competitive. I think season 1 we were racing all in the same cars, but my question is obviously Formula E is a technological sort of series. It needs to advance that technology in terms of EV cars, and if we do start really standardizing parts even within the powertrain, I know that saves costs, but then, where are we making gains in terms of, that 2040 target where we want electric vehicles to be ready, matching petrol cars, and, that transition period, is over and is smooth effectively towards electric vehicles rather than just janted or in not being ready yet.
Well, yeah, I think most Formula E is standard parts already, and so yeah, I think that they would want to continue along this route for a while, and as I said, the whole powertrain stays as it is for a while. I think that should be fine. I don't see much wrong with it. But yeah, no, I think that I think they should keep it as it is. I think that's the correct, they should correct decision. And yeah, as I said, when they want to have a go at doing the battery stuff, maybe delay it by a couple of years now. Maybe try for that, mid to late of this decade, and then go from there. But I reckon we will catch up. We will catch up to the 2040 deadline.
I hope so. I really hope so. But I think it depends also, I suppose, how Formula E develops now. The manufacturers in the series will have a big sway on that in the future. Let's talk about the likes of Mercedes, Porsche. Okay, they haven't been in it long, but even the likes of Audi, Nissan, which is also sort of Renault in a sense, they will begin to start swaying Formula E and dictating what Formula E does. Because if they want to start creating their own batteries, then they'll push for it. And if they think they've got the money to do it, they'll sort of present arguments and say to Formula E, this is what we want to do. Is that going to be helpful for the cost of the sport? No. But if these manufacturers want to do it, I have a feeling in the future, they will sway Formula E in terms of which way they go in terms of the technical roadmap of the series.
Yeah, and what would be really interesting is to see Jaguar, especially having just lost the I-Pace e-Trophy Sports Series, whether that's changed their tact. Because I'm not saying that Jaguar are in financial difficulty. In fact, before the pandemic, they were they're actually making a bit of money and doing quite well. So it'd be interesting if, especially with, I don't want to make too big a point out of this, but there's obviously apparently this little thing called Brexit that's supposed to happen at some point later this year, originally scheduled. But yeah, that might impact Jaguar's thinking as well, because they're based in Coventry, aren't they? So yeah.
So I suppose there's so many things financially that are up in the air, but I do believe that the longer the Formula E goes on, the more the manufacturers will begin to say, you know what, we want this to happen now because X, Y, and Z reason we're getting close to 2040. We want to start creating our own in-house batteries, and Formula E will help us do that. We even discussed it on a couple of shows, Jack. Instead of opening the tender to just one person, those manufacturers that say they want to do it, they say, fine, right, we'll open the tender to 2 or 3 batteries, and then you have to sell the battery to the Formula E teams, and you get, like, instead of like a powertrain supply, you also have a battery supply. So imagine being a customer team and you've got you buy McLaren's battery, for example, but you also buy Jaguar's powertrain, for example. You have a right mismatch between different powertrains. Or would it come in a set? I know I'm throwing that out there like some random thing, but it'd be pretty funny to see like a random customer team, let's say Scuderia E, who let's say they become a customer team, deciding to take one of that and one of this.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see the Envision, Virgin, Audi, Citroen, coming in a few years' time. But no, I think I think definitely if there is like a tender for it, it may work because some manufacturers may not want to do it. Some manufacturers may want to wait a bit, so maybe have a tender for a few years and then do another tender, and then do another tender, and so on and so forth until just keep on going until everything's big. But Formula E it's already been shown that Formula E is helping the development of racetrack to road technology with electric vehicles, and I think that would only just that would just only develop it further.
And think about it, right? Even if we get some battery competition, even if it's just opened, Ed, to one other manufacturer, so the tender is McLaren and let's say Mercedes, then straight away, you're gonna, because McLaren will want to produce the best battery and Mercedes will want to produce the best battery. So straight away, there's competition, and competition fuels, if I can say it, improvements. And by just having one extra person in that tender being accepted, we could really move battery technology along.
That's very true. I think that's a good point. But the other thing it does is it would raise costs through the roof. It's one of the reasons why in Formula One there's no longer a tyre war. They have a controlled tyre manufacturer that supplies tyres to everyone, because in the early 2000s, the tyre war between, I think, Michelin and Bridgestone was just through the roof. In a way, it's another thing that I'm kind of glad in Formula E we only have Michelin as a controlled tyre supplier to everyone as well. Well, that's not relevant to what you were saying. That's just what it makes me think of.
I remember actually Goodyear came out with a tyre, or came out with a design for a tyre that basically helped regen. Basically helped the regen stuff, was really good for battery efficiency. This was what they were arguing, and I remember writing an argument if a tyre war in Formula E would be good. Could we actually develop a tyre that helps regenerate energy? And I remember Daniel Abt commenting, no. But
I think Daniel's got a good point.
Shot down.
Yeah, like Daniel Abt said no, so it didn't happen. But it was amazing to see what Goodyear was sort of saying. Look, this is what you could potentially do just with a tire and a wheel and so forth, and using technology. I don't know, I can't remember. It was years ago that it came out, but it was just amazing that Goodyear said, look, you could do something like this with a tire and help. Even the tires helping you save energy and improve the range of the actual powertrain. So boys, moving on to the sort of last sort of thing, talk about to sort of wrap up today's show. We've been wanting to talk about this topic probably since the beginning of the show actually started, which was our best tracks, but we never actually got round to deciding if we do a top 5 or just a random sort of our own top 5 tracks, but we've decided just to pick one track. Okay, so I'm going to throw over to Ed first. Ed, so what would your best track be?
Well, we've had a lot of really good tracks over the years, some of which sadly aren't on the calendar anymore, but are looking to come back, and that's one of the ones I picked, or the one I picked rather, which is Buenos Aires, the Puerto Madero street circuit. It's very fast, it's very flowing, it's really good for overtakes. I don't think we ever really had a particularly bad race there. Every race there, I can remember at least something that happened. And I think it's missed in the calendar. I think they had one off the calendar because of construction issues. But my favourite race there would probably be season 2, where Sebastian Buemi started at the back, got up to second, and Sandberg held everyone up and won the race despite having the heaviest powertrain imaginable to man behind it.
Yeah, I remember Buenos Aires was a great track, and I remember Andrew van der Berg, who was working at Formula E at the time, said if there's one place you want to do a long haul flight to, it was definitely Buenos Aires. Jack, where did you choose, or what did you choose?
Long haul flight to, because you have to go on a 2-hour trip later, as I found out, is if you want to go flying to Montevideo and take the trip to Punta del Este. I love this track. It was tipped to do fantastic things with Formula E. It was supposed to be Formula E's Monaco. It had that amazing flat out turn 13. It always produced good racing, and yeah, I desperately want to go back there, even if everyone has to put up with a 2-hour coach trip from Montevideo to there. There are a few honourable mentions as well, like Puigdemont and Montreal and Moscow and stuff like that. But yeah, we haven't got time for that.
Yeah. No, for me, it was Rome. I don't know, obviously the tracks that you've picked, I would agree that they are pretty good tracks, but I really like Rome. It just has the fast flowing section, that downhill, a good undulation chains, the massive jump that they've got to go through, but then it's also tight and twisty, so it's got a bit of everything, Rome. So I went for Rome. I thought a bit outside the box. But boys, we've managed to do it. We've managed to come to the end of the show. Probably our last midweek sort of a random news review and the topical discussion for a while. So thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed your company over this last month.
Oh, no worries, Jack. I'm sure we'll see each other again soon.
Yeah, tomorrow, because we got a show tomorrow where we're going to wait the show. I don't know what time it will go out actually live, because we're going to wait for the announcement of this track thing, and then we're going to do it then, because there's no press conference today, so they didn't give us a sort of heads up of what it was going to be. So we're going to wait, find out what it is, discuss it, look at Formula E's long-term plans, and go from there. So thank you so much for watching. If you have liked the content, please hit that like button and that subscribe button, and if you want to come and join us in our Discord channel, hit the link below. You have been watching the FEZ show. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.